It is Friday, February 13th. Let's talk PlayStation. Welcome back, everyone, to another Reanimal episode of LTPS. As per usual, let's begin with our PS Plus reminder. The February PS Plus Essential lineup is still live on PSN. Make sure you claim those games. Also, we have PS Plus Extra and Premium's February lineup revealed as well, going live on February 17th. And for PS Plus Extra, we have a handful of games here. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is headlining, so Sony, after 2-something years, now throwing that into the service. We also have Test Drive Unlimited, Solar Crown, Neva, Season, A Letter to the Future, Monster Hunter Stories, and also the sequel, Wings of Ruin, then Vemba, Echoes of the End, Enhanced Edition, and Rugby 25. Going into PS Plus Premium, we have one lone PlayStation 2 game, which is Disney Pixar Wall-E. So, we have more Disney games still showing up on Premium, because, as we've established, it's highly dependent on publishers that are okay with being in the service, and there's very likely some kind of long-term agreement working on the back catalog, so still Disney games, and arguably some throwaway titles with nothing else, which is unfortunate, but we do have some relevant PS Plus news from the State of Play this past week for classic games that are showing up later, or relatively soon, I would imagine. But Extra, obviously it's quite good. If you've already played Spider-Man 2, then a big benefit there is kind of gone. But I will say, having Neva show up right before the new game, which was shown during the State of Play, is quite handy. Season, A Letter to the Future is a beautiful, nice short game. Same with Venba. That one's very meaningful. It's a very heartwarming story. A platinum in 2-something hours if you take your time, so that's something I recommend. So it's not the greatest PS Plus Extra lineup. It's heavily outweighed with Marvel Spider-Man 2, but we do see that 2-something year gap where Sony will eventually throw these games onto PlayStation Plus Extra. Now, moving on to our first news story, we have a new PS5 system software update. I'm still in my coughing fit, so bear with me. But this one is version 26.01, 12.70, and they've got one singular line item on there. We've improved system software performance and stability. Now, you all know I love my stable PlayStations, but they didn't improve messages and usability on some screens? What is going on? I damn near blew a gasket, had a rage fit. I'm a little bit upset, and I'm hoping that we do get a follow-up firmware that has that line item. And as much of a joke as I'm making this out to be, it really will be hilarious if they do that again, where it's segmented. So we do have this one, and then a follow-up with the other typical line item. So we'll see. Now, before getting into the State of Play goodness, we do have one follow-up news story from last week in light of the Horizon Hunters Gathering announcement, which is the speculation of when will we get a mainline Horizon entry, Horizon 3, from Guerrilla Games, now that this is their next title. And so over on Blue Sky, we have Bloomberg's Jason Schreier responding to people asking about the third Horizon entry. So one person said they shouldn't expect it to launch for a while, and Jason said, quote, "Yup." Another asked about the studio makeup and who's working on what, and so for Horizon Hunters Gathering, Jason said, quote, "I believe most of the studio is on this," end quote. Now, it's not much to go on, but Jason Schreier is typically somebody well-sourced, so when they say anything, as little as they may say, people tend to pay attention to it, and so this does imply that the third entry is maybe much further away than we were thinking. Because Forbidden West came out in 2022, Burning Shores the following year. This game, Hunter's Gathering, has been in development since at least 2018, which is a very long time, obviously, but I guess this would make sense because Guerrilla is a very big team, no doubt, but they are spread somewhat thin, just in the sense that you would have a core team that, shipped Forbidden West, then you move some people over to Burning Shores. You've got a team that's prototyping, doing the early phase for Hunter's Gathering. Then you've got people that are assigned to overlook and curate things like Call of the Mountain, this NCSoft project, Zero Dawn Remastered. And then there's a core technology team working on the Decima engine. They're a big studio, but when you start throwing all those projects out there, you start to realize that there may not be nearly as many people on the third entry than you would think. So I would have to imagine it was Burning Shores closing up, and then most of the staff are moving over to Hunter's Gathering, which again, you had a smaller team starting that in 2018. They're going to clear this game up, and then you have people assigned to maintaining that game, doing new content for that game, then more people funnel into Horizon 3. Now, having said that, it does read as though Horizon 3 probably is like not even a 2027, maybe not even a PS6 launch title, because I think that's naturally what people are maybe expecting, and that's still contingent on where PlayStation 6 is even launching, if it still is holiday 2027. But now the read, to me, seems like this game might be analogous to Forbidden West itself, in that maybe this game does not show up until 1 or 2 years into PlayStation 6, which I am somewhat on the fence about that. I don't know. Like, I'm actually okay with Horizon, that third entry being further away, if only because now there is a lot of Horizon content out there, and so maybe give the franchise some time to have that big third entry, but that's a consequence of, again, all the stuff that we already have going on. Also, Forbidden West was 2022, so I also would like to see the sequel sooner than that. I don't know. It's weird, right? Because this franchise has so much noise around it for either people disliking it or genuinely people do want it, but they just want that main entry and nothing else. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I like all the content, but it would definitely be a bit underwhelming to know that the third entry is maybe even further out than we thought. Okay, let's move on to the big State of Play presentation because there is a lot to cover. They confirmed the show on Monday, aired yesterday on Thursday, and it was over an hour long. PlayStation studio announcements, third-party announcements, big and small, a lot of crazy things going on. Many are saying that this definitely was one of the best State of Plays out there. I would agree. As we typically do, let's go over every single announcement as a very quick recap and then break down more granular stories as we digest the entire thing. So it opened up with Kena Scars of Cosmora announced for PlayStation 5 and PC coming this year. It's now a PlayStation Studios title. So Ember Lab for years has gotten very cozy with Sony, and now they've got a more proper deal directly funded by SIE for the sequel to Kena Bridge of Spirits. After that was Ghost of Yotei Legends, a new trailer. It's coming out March 10th. It's free DLC for owners that have the game right now, and it showcased the Yotei 6 in very yokai, demonic-looking forms. It very much leans more into the supernatural elements as Tsushima Legends previously did. After that is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, the PC reveal confirmed, coming March 19th. This was once again in collaboration with Nixxes Software. After that is the PlayStation Studios game For Loop from director Mike Booth and Bad Robot Games, where they did a more thorough breakdown of the gameplay loop itself, what you're doing, how you progress, how you get through a run, seeing some footage of a Rubik's Cube boss fight, which was really wacky, but we did see a good portion of that game. And then we had a Pragmata trailer next from Capcom, which they're just showing more of the game, reminding you that you can pre-order ahead of the April launch, and hey, the demo is still available on PSN right now on PlayStation 5. Then we have Resident Evil Requiem, another trailer here where they're showcasing some very interesting locations that might be a good tease for an RE fan looking forward to this game launching at the end of this month. And then next up we have Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered, a new trailer showing off all the goodies and bonuses and hidden content that you can play for this game. Then we have Brigadine Abyss announced coming to PlayStation 5 this year, and also Dead or Alive 6 Last Round confirmed for PlayStation 5 with a free-to-play version, and also a new Dead or Alive game is confirmed as well. After that, we have Control Resonant gameplay. A lot of gameplay for this game, showcasing the open world Manhattan, a very twisted looking Manhattan, so we can see how you can get around, also the melee combat. It looks like a very different game from Control when that title came out in 2019. Then we have Crimson Moon announced coming 2026, and then Beast of Reincarnation got a new trailer as well from Game Freak, and then we have Rayman 30th Anniversary Edition announced, available right now. So the game is playable, you can buy it. It's a walkthrough of the first 5 Rayman games, or really the first 5 editions of the first entry in the franchise, and you've also got a playable museum, basically. You can see some concept art and things like that. A very great way to monetize an older title. After that, we have Mina the Hollower, a new trailer for that game coming spring 2026, and a demo is available tomorrow, as in today. So this is also available as well. Then we have Neva Prologue announced coming February 19th. So this one is very, very close, and it lines up quite well with the base Neva game available on PS Plus Extra. So you have about 2 days to play Neva, then you can jump right into the Prologue when the PS Plus Extra catalog goes live on the 17th. Next up is Yako Shinobi Ops announced, coming 2027. It's more of a isometric viewpoint style game, so not quite the Shinobi I think people were expecting, but Yako Shinobi Ops, that's coming. And then Project Windless was announced. This is a very fascinating title. A lot of people are watching this one because the protag is a giant chicken, and this chicken is beating down tons of NPCs. There's a lot of on-screen enemies. It looks kind of like Dynasty Warriors in a way, with these giant battles and the amount of enemies on screen. But Project Windless has no doubt caught a lot of attention, possibly for the big chicken that is once again just going ham. After that, though, we have Star Wars Galactic Racer, a new trailer coming in 2026, and then another trailer for 007 First Light as well. Then we move into a Konami section, a full Konami introduction of this round of announcements from this publisher, which first up we have Metal Gear Solid Volume 2 Collection, officially revealed coming August 27th. And this one does have Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots from PlayStation 3. It is finally leaving PlayStation 3. And we also have MGS Peace Walker from PSP, and also the first handheld Metal Gear game, Metal Gear Ghost Babel. So these games are all coming to modern platforms: PlayStation 5, Series S, X, Switch 1 and 2, and PC, August 27th. And we also learned about the final update for the MGS Volume 1 collection, which will make some serious resolution bumps to the games and that collection of titles. After that, we move on to Darwin's Paradox, a new trailer, and the demo is available right now, so you can also play the very cool-looking octopus game. And then we have a new Castlevania game. Castlevania Belmont's Curse was revealed, coming 2026. After that, we have Silent Hill Townfall, a new trailer coming this year, which led right into a Silent Hill transmission livestream, showing off a lot more of, well, they didn't show much more of the game, but certainly explained a large portion of the methodology of the town they chose, the protagonist, and some of the gameplay choices that some of the decisions they've made for that particular game. Then we have Rev Noir announcement, which this game is in development. It's a Konami title, a new JRPG. They didn't show that much per se. I think there's still a lot we need to see of this game because they're describing it as a JRPG, but it might not necessarily look like that from the gameplay, but there's really not much more to go on just yet. But that is all the Konami announcements. Then we move on to John Wick. A John Wick game is confirmed. Trailer. It very much looks like John Wick, and that's all we have currently. Then we have a Marathon trailer confirming an open playable test announcement is later this month. So now it will not be much longer of a wait for everybody to hop in and try Marathon for themselves. Then we move on to the PS Plus Extra and Premium announcements that we typically see in these bigger state of plays. So we learned that Big Walk is launching into PS Plus Extra this year. Big Walk is from the studio that did Untitled Goose Game. This is their next big game, so it's launching day one into PS Plus Extra for PlayStation 5. And then for Premium, we have Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, the PSP game coming, and Time Crisis PS1, which this game is going to support gyro aiming for the DualShock 4 and the DualSense, which is actually a very cool, novel way to do Time Crisis on modern consoles without having the light gun. Next up, we had a new gameplay trailer for Housemarque's Saros, showing off the progression system, the mid-run hub area, and also various quality of life choices that they're making with this game, refining upon it from what we originally saw with Returnal, making a lot of very good choices, I would say, in refining this experience and making it more conducive to a roguelike player that is a veteran or somebody that's coming in very new. Then we have Marvel Tōkon. The release date is August 6th, and there's also new X-Men character reveals, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we end off the state of play with T.C. Carson, the voice of the original God of War Kratos himself, where he confirms a God of War Trilogy Remake is coming, and also God of War Sons of Sparta, which is the 2D Metroidvania God of War game, and that title shadow dropped immediately on PlayStation Network. So that was the entire state of play. We've got more stories that we'll talk about in a second for the bigger things, but to roundabout discuss the entire state of play, I mean, I don't think there's much to say. I would agree with a lot here in that this was an incredibly strong showing. You likely could have threw a showcase name on it. At this point, I don't really care to humor how they call their shows or whatever. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I find it doesn't matter too much. If they're going to ever revisit the showcase name or moniker, or moniker, I think they should really reserve that for major hardware announcements, just so it really does telegraph that, hey, this is a really big show and you should pay attention to this one. They used the showcase name for a few years, but 2023 kind of killed it, and that was a very underwhelming live stream. State of plays, I like that they can run the gamut. They can be big, small, focus on third party, focus on PSVR 2, focus on one game, focus on Japan titles. I kind of like that you don't necessarily know outside of the blog post telling you, here's what's going to be in it. I really don't care otherwise for how they could have named this or not. I just think that it was a great live stream. It really was a strong showing. Konami came out swinging with a lot of very closely tied PlayStation announcements. Silent Hill Townfall looks excellent. I really love that Silent Hill is back, and while I'm still somewhat uneasy that they want to annualize this franchise, so far they are still showing really compelling stuff with now Townfall, first-person view, different environment, different pro tag. I mean, that's what Silent Hill is, but it depends on how you execute on that idea, and Townfall looks really encouraging. It's excellent that we finally have a new Castlevania game. It's been a long time coming, but Belmont's Curse, I'm not sure if it looks the way people were expecting, but I mean, I can get down with it. It looks great. I'm ready to play that game. MGS4 finally leaving PlayStation 3 is insane. I mean, we all knew it was coming, but that was the thing. Like we always said too, like when that happens, it's going to be a huge deal. That is a game that, it's funny looking back on it, right? Because that joke really did hold true for a very long time, and that Kojima said, back then, you want to play that game, you got to buy a PlayStation 3. And by God, if by sheer virtue of the cell processor and the PS3's obtuse system architecture, outside of emulating the game, which is possible, for most people to have a readily available version to buy and play on a home console, yeah, you simply couldn't do that until now, August of this year, which is insane. It's great to see them finally do that. I had mentioned, it's probably that crazy PS3 code that took up the bulk of making Volume 2. Peace Walker, they've already got the PSP version from the previous release that they did. It was probably no trouble making a playable version for the Ghost Babel game. For all intents and purposes, this was them working to port Guns of the Patriots to all these consoles. So it's great that that game finally will be playable to far more people. Control Resonant, I'm nervous about, but I still like that they are being very bold and going in a crazy different direction, because that game, legitimately in universe, sure, it's Control, but we went from close quarters, linear third-person shooting to open-world melee combat. Very different experiences. I love the universe, so I will play Resonant, but it's really cool to see that. I unironically am very happy and excited for Darwin's Paradox. Neva Prologue looks great. Mina the Hollower. There's a lot here that I like. And I always complain about this, or rather complain about the commentary for these live streams, and that for a lot of people, you're looking for one or two announcements in there. And if you don't get those one or two announcements, you're probably going to be upset with the show and think it was crap or bad or terrible. Occasionally, every so often, the stars align, and I think you get a lot of really exciting announcements that are very broad, and these are big IP that appeal to a lot of people, and usually you get a really good live stream like this. They can't always happen, obviously, with how long games take to make, and then how much attention there is from other live streams, TGAs, Directs, Xbox Developer Directs, Summer Game Fest. these games are also spread very thin for their announcements or second gameplay showcases. Like, it's just very hard to coordinate and for them to all fall into one show. So, you know, when these things come along, it's really great and fun to watch them. And in this case, I think it was a wonderful live stream, and there's a lot of really compelling products coming out soon. Now, moving on to the more granular stories, let's indeed talk about the God of War Remake trilogy, which was indeed confirmed, and it was confirmed in a very teaser, hey, we're working on this kind of thing, don't bug us about it for a while. That was very particular language that it was great to have TC Carson deliver that announcement, but that basically is what they're saying. So what we know right now is that it is in-house at Santa Monica. I'm not sure if they're collaborating with anybody else, but they're only saying Santa Monica Studio, and it's still in very early development, so they ask for patience, and it will be a while before more information is shared, and they do promise that the next update, however, should be a big one. So the language right now is, we're confirming it, give us a while. That sounds like maybe at least a year, possibly 2, but hey, the next time we do show this, we will show a lot of it, which... Remake 1, 2, and 3, the trilogy games, none of the PSP titles or any spinoff, but I mean, it's awesome. This is excellent. I wasn't expecting full-blown remakes. However, business-wise, if you're going to remake anything out of your lineup of IP, I mean, these are the games to do. And God of War 3, I mean, it's on PlayStation 4 as a resolution frame rate bump, but it is a 2010 PlayStation 3 game. At this point, these titles are getting upwards of 15, 20 years old. So, I mean, it is getting to a point where a lot of publishers are exploring and remaking those games. And we can see that there is a pretty dramatic visual fidelity difference, just in the sense that if you're injecting 4K textures into games, they will look dramatically different. But there's a lot that we can add to these titles, obviously, as far as quality of life and things like that. It'll be really fascinating to see how they package these games, if they will be... Because I would assume the way that they presented it with the logo and 1, 2, 3, naming it as a trilogy, that it will be one singular thing you can buy, all 3 games. But as they release it to you, can you buy them individually? And more so, if it is one game that you can buy, presumably, one disc, one package, one executable on PSN, will they actually stitch these games together so you can go through 1, 2, and 3 in a very seamless manner? Which that could be very interesting. I mean, we don't know what kind of remake it is. Is this a remake where it's Demon's Souls and it's mechanically the same game, it just looks like a gorgeous PlayStation 5 title? Or are they making gameplay refinements? Are they taking some liberties and changing certain sections? Like, we don't know any. It's all speculation. But what I will say is that this is awesome. Super cool. Love the God of War games so much. 1, 2, and 3 are very close to my heart. And it's just amazing to have TC Carson deliver this news. And so this will be something I greatly look forward to covering for the years to come on LTPS as we slowly work up to these games, getting more news and the eventual launch. Now, the other big God of War game was Sons of Sparta, which this is something SIE does not normally do, which is shadow dropping one of their own titles on PSN right away after a live stream. More publishers are doing this, and now SIE is finally dipping their toes in it as well. And so, yeah, Sons of Sparta is available right now on PSN. The game is $30 USD for the standard edition. There's also a deluxe edition for $40 USD. It was developed by Mega Cat Studios, probably with some oversight from Santa Monica Studios. The writers at least worked on the lore and plotline for this. It's a 2D action platformer. It is canon in the story, where it focuses on Kratos, his youth as a young Spartan, and also training with his brother Deimos. And TC Carson is back once again, voicing Kratos as the narrator for his youth throughout the story of what he goes through. So he's narrating the entire game. And so far, I mean, I've only played 20-something minutes, so I've got very limited time on the game right now. I did want to jump in a little bit and try it out, but it's very interesting. And so far, it's also interesting watching the early discussion because the game shadow dropped, so it's so early. Nobody knows how big the game is, how easy it is to platinum, but also, like, there's no reviews. Like, that's the thing about shadow drops, is that it's, for the first 24-something hours, it's a lot of speculation and discussion, even though the game is immediately available. But the art style itself, I think, is certainly what threw people off because it's pixel-based. I mean, I think a lot of us were expecting that maybe it would have been again, 2.5D, possibly 3D looking God of War, which it just looks like Kratos 3D side as an adult. We didn't really know to what scope it was going to, how it was going to be presented. And I can definitely see how some are turned off by the way it looks right now and that it maybe doesn't feel or look at all like God of War. I'm on the opposite end of this, if only because it was very refreshing, and I had a kind of whiplash moment of when you launch the game, it's a PS Studios title, so you get the PlayStation Studios like sweeping animation. And when that happens, you typically see some gameplay footage into the PlayStation buttons as it's sweeping around and doing the animation closeout. And we've had that animation with primarily, outside of like Astrobot and things like that, it has been AAA, 9-figure, cinematic, big budget, gorgeous looking video games. And it was really weird, but also really refreshing to see a pixel art style game in that animation. Because it sort of signified to me that this is PlayStation now really willing to explore possibly more games like this. And that's the one thing I kind of took away to at least kick off the 20 minutes of gameplay. Gameplay itself, I will say, it's very early. It does feel a bit clunky to me. It certainly is a Metroidvania. You can bring up a map, you can see where you're supposed to go, and there's very likely some backtracking, going to other areas, and expanding the character from there. There's a skill tree, and so it probably gets refined out a lot better as the combat gets fleshed out more. It's very basic with spear attacks, but traversal I find is very important in a Metroidvania, and so far climbing and jumping off of ledges didn't really feel very intuitive, so I can't say I love the gameplay, but I do find it very refreshing, and it's still very God of War coded to me in that, that's what like young Spartans look like. Oh, it's Deimos, that's a callback to other various parts of God of War lore. It opens with Calliope, so it's like the lore is there, and there's a story to see through, and that's why I'm excited to get back to my playthrough. But I really love that it came out immediately, and we can just start playing it and speculating from there. The only downside is that shadow drops can be very dangerous because, quite frankly, you're buying a product that you don't know what the quality is like. There could be major issues or gameplay bugs, which are not at all uncommon in today's modern video games. And also, yes, it does suck that there's no physical print. The thing is, I made that decision right away, kind of gambling on the idea that, I don't think they're going to print this game. SIE has not really, they'll print most things, but so far we have seen that they haven't printed Call of the Mountain, Days Gone Remastered. I don't think they're going to print this one. If they do, I'll buy it. I'll buy it eventually when it's much cheaper. But for what was a $30 video game, I'm not vehemently against buying digital games if they fall in that mid-tier budget sort of digital game scope. We all know there's kind of a gray area with games that feel like they should be physicals or not, but then the limited print companies come in. So maybe one will happen eventually. I don't know, but otherwise, I am enjoying my time with it, and the game is available now. Now, the other PS Studios game we got more details on, and we were waiting on, is Marvel Tōkon Fighting Souls. This game actually got a Steam pre-order page listed before the State of Play, so we found out some of the stuff before the presentation, but now we know confirmed. 20 playable characters at launch. We've seen 8 so far before the State of Play, which would be Captain America, Doctor Doom, Ghost Rider, Iron Man, Ms. Marvel, Spider-Man, Star-Lord, and Storm. And so the State of Play revealed more X-Men characters, Magic, Wolverine, and Danger. And there will be a single-player episode mode that's going to give people a learning mechanism for the mechanics and also get some in-game lore as well. And the pre-orders are live right now. The standard edition for this game is $60 USD, and the digital edition is $85 USD, and that comes with year 1 characters and a stage pass. So that's 4 characters and 1 extra stage post-launch. The Ultimate Edition is $100 USD, and that comes with 5 character costumes and an animated chromatic color unlock for all 20 characters, and then the Digital Deluxe bonuses as well. The game launches August 6th for PS5, PC, and on PC, you will need a PSN account confirmed as well. So I will defer to others that know a lot more about fighting games. Of course, I don't really have much business talking on this. The only thing I can reasonably add here is that I find the total character count particularly low, if only because for a 4v4, and there's only 20 playable characters, like that is a lot of crossover. Like you're going to be seeing and fighting the same characters very often, because that's the one thing people seem to take away from this game, is that 4 versus 4 is unusual and not typically done. So 20 seems on the lower end. I'm hearing that is true, so we'll see if they can maintain a healthy player pool over time so they can get to 4 additional characters, I should say. And then with that roadmap, every game of this nature has a 1-2 year roadmap, but that will always be contingent on the player pool. They will kill those plans as fast as possible if it does not pan out. So assuming they can find a player base, then let's hope they get to more characters over time. It might be something where they're obligated by Marvel to contractually fill that out and ship the rest of the characters, but I would still guess that it will be tough to do that if they don't find a consistent player pool. Okay, let's move on to some quick-fire third-party news stories, beginning with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the Game Boost feature, or the boost features, the cheats basically. The game director, Naoki Hamaguchi, confirmed this, where the Switch 2 and Xbox versions are getting the enhancements that 7 Remake recently got. So that's going to include toggles for having constant max HP or max MP, the limit gauge always full, ATB gauge always full, max damage on the mini games, 2 times XP, 3 times AP gain. You can really just cheat everything, and if you want to blow through the game at your own discretion or toggle certain things for your own accessibility concerns, you can do that for 7 Rebirth. They didn't say this was coming to PlayStation 5, but judging from 7 Remake and those accessibility features, you would think PS5 will get patched when these games launch on the other systems, which we do know that those cheats did not disable trophies on PlayStation. So now you can definitely get through 7 Remake much easier and earn yourself a platinum, which there are certain bosses in 7 Remake that are, excuse me, especially in the intermission DLC, which are very tough to get through. So for some, that's up for contention. I will say trophies are always time-stamped, so you can always be proud of your platinum before that date. That's always the thing that I like to call out for some trophies that I've earned, which I know have been patched after the fact and made much easier, but just something to consider with Rebirth now probably getting substantially easier if these do not disable trophies like 7 Remake did. Next up, Black Myth Zhong, which is the next entry in the Black Myth franchise, has now been properly confirmed for PlayStation 5. It's one of those technicality things, but when that game was initially revealed, the language was PC and modern consoles, which at the very minimum means, oh, the game's so far away, maybe it's PS6, not PS5. We would safely think PS5, but anyway, the point is, new trailer just came out, 6 minutes of in-engine footage uploaded on the PlayStation YouTube channel, and it confirms PlayStation 5. So there you go. Game looks very pretty. We've got a very funny clip of a young woman cooking, which looks like some really good food. Some really beautiful, gorgeous in-engine food for Black Myth Zhong. Now moving on to a not-so-good news story, but possibly very expected outcome for Highguard, the new title from Wildlight Entertainment, where they tried to shadow drop it, announced it instead at the TGAs. They didn't choose where it was going to show up in that live stream. Was the end of the announcement, turned into a whole big thing. Game initially comes out, still shadow dropped in January. Has a decent player count initially, a lot of people jumping in, trying the game out. We are seeing that the player count has been steadily declining, only on Steam. It's only a concurrent CCU, so we can't exactly say how many people are playing, but we have a very good idea that the player drop-off is quite significant, even after adding the 5v5 mode. And so we got the unfortunate news that Wildlight Entertainment has issued a statement. They are laying off a number of team members, which we now know from former employees at this point. It turns out that most of the team has been laid off. Wildlight has clarified that they're keeping a core group of developers to continue supporting the game. Now, I would have to imagine, outside of the obvious notion that people are pointing out, hey, game comes out, players are gone, it's failing, it's the live service story. I will say this probably is something where they might be jumping the gun a bit. I mean, they might not have a very good take rate on all the cosmetics or in-game currency that they're selling. However they're monetizing the game, the take rate is probably incredibly poor. I'm not sure if this needed to be the 1% pie in the sky next Fortnite kind of game. I mean, in theory, if they can maintain a few thousand players at any given time, that implies they have a very consistent user base. And it's about maintaining that with the overhead that studio needs to live. But if it is falling off that much, either the take rate is very, very poor, or they're just jumping the gun and trying to insulate themselves from possible more financial ruin and to weather the storm and see if they can maintain that player base. You know, as sad as that sounds, that's probably a hard executive decision they made. If they possibly could have kept burning cash for a little bit, having everybody on staff, but to insulate, you likely would have had to get rid of all that staff and those wages to maybe possibly have the game supported longer than they were expecting based on the burn rate of the studio. I don't want to try and justify it per se, but maybe that's where their line of thinking is. Either way, it's looking very tough for Wildlight and Highguard. Next up, we have some more casting announcements for some PlayStation Productions projects, and so for the God of War Amazon TV series, we now have our Atreus. Atreus is being played by Callum Vinson. So we have Atreus now, Ryan Hurst playing Kratos. That is our father and son combo, and I still think we've seen some very strong casting choices. Now I just need to see some of the remaining folks that haven't been picked yet. God of War 2018 and Ragnarok still has a number of roles that can be filled out, so we'll have to wait on that. And then going into the Helldivers movie, we have one big name, which is Jason Momoa. So Jason Momoa is signed on for this game. Deadline reports he is cast for the movie adaptation, which is going to hit theaters November 10th, 2027. And as a reminder, Justin Lin is directing this movie, and they previously worked on the Fast and the Furious films. I don't have anything to say about this, if only because it's Helldivers. This should be slapstick comedy. So Jason Momoa is a really, a really big name. That's probably going to get people to theaters. I mean, I don't know. To me, I think this is a very inoffensive pick. It's probably going to be some other very big names, and just make sure this thing doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, Helldivers has lore, but it doesn't have the kind of meaningful, grounded lore that a God of War would have, to where you're like laser focused on who gets cast for what roles. In this case, you think, all right, Jason Momoa, that could have been Will Ferrell, and it probably would have worked just as well, if not better. Now, with all that said, it is time for Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway, where one of you can win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or X, and if you'd like to win a $10 PSN code, it is so simple. You can follow the link down below or scan the QR code and enter the Gleam giveaway. And supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week, because I'm trying to help pay for your games. Those are all the stories from this past week that I wanted to talk about with you all, and our Tuesday video was a conversation topic on bad video games. It used to be okay to buy, play, even enjoy those bad games, and nowadays the online environment and narratives tend to really warp that perception. So just a conversation topic I wanted to ramble on about. That was Tuesday. Yesterday we did the State of Play reaction, so if you want to watch the whole thing with me, that was yesterday. And then we also had Click R3 last night, so me and John did our live stream. It's archived on the Spawncast Network channel. And then coming up, probably another upload on Tuesday as per usual. Maybe I'll upload something about Sons of Sparta. I want to try and get in the habit of actually playing more of the games and maybe uploading impressions or talking about the games. We do so much business stuff, so maybe we should do more of that as well. You can let me know otherwise if you'd like to see some of that. But that, I think, is pretty much it. So that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you all next Friday.